Welcome to the Financial Freedom and Wealth Trailblazers podcast, part of the Digital Trailblazer podcast family. This podcast is dedicated to bringing you experts and trailblazers to help you advance in your career, step into the leader you are meant to be, build wealth, and ultimately create financial freedom.
Welcome back, Trailblazers. If you're new here, I'm Alicia, and today I'm talking with Tamara Witham. It's so good to meet you. Why don't you take a second, introduce yourself, and tell people a little bit about what you do?
Hi, Alicia. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm a certified financial planner, and what that means is that I help my clients with everything in their lives that touches finances. So outside of just investments, although we do investments, that'll be insurance, budgeting, planning for college, getting out of debt, and most everybody needs to plan for their own retirement.
Absolutely. So this is also important, and I'm super excited to talk to you about it. Why don't you tell me how this all got started for you?
Yeah, so I have a very long background in what I call a very traditional finance job. I worked on Wall Street for about over 20 years in traditional finance roles. What that means is I worked as part of bond departments, selling bonds right out of business school. I moved on to working for big companies like Pacific Investment Management Company, otherwise known as PIMCO, Goldman Sachs Asset Management, working with institutional clients, explaining portfolio and positioning and performance and attribution to performance. And doing that for such a long time, I realized that I was missing something. And what that something was the personal side of the business. I wanted to work directly with people and impact their lives directly rather than indirectly. And that's when I made the switch over to financial planning.
Oh, I love that. Having that purpose, right? That purpose around what you're doing is so important.
That's exactly right. And finding that purpose was great when I spoke to a friend of mine who was actually a financial planner. I had an acquaintance, and she invited me to work with her as an unpaid intern. So that was a really big leap, going from a well-paying job, working on Wall Street for years and years, to leaving that job and taking the coursework I needed to become a certified financial planner while working on the practical side with her, sitting in meetings with her as an unpaid intern.
That's a big leap.
Yeah. It took a lot of courage on my part.
No doubt.
But it was really invaluable just to have that practical experience, to know once I switched over and started to start my own firm, and once I became a financial planner and got that certification, how it was supposed to look, what I'm actually supposed to be doing, rather than just going in blind.
Yeah, that's so important. So tell me what it looks like when clients are coming to you. What does it look like when you're working with them? What are some of the first things that you're doing?
Right in the beginning of the process, we have kind of a process that's templated, and I template it because I know it works. Right away, when a client signs on, they typically have already had what we call a discovery meeting, which is an in-depth meeting to really pull out their needs and goals and really demonstrate to them how I can add value to help them reach those goals. I mean, that's ultimately what I'm hired to do. And then once we start onboarding, we do what's called a get organized meeting, which can mean different things for different folks. Some are very savvy, like your audience, I'm sure, is very savvy for digital onboarding and doing all sorts of things that are involved electronically. And that means just data gathering and working on the financial planning software that I use and making sure that it's accurate, because ultimately we're going to be relying on the output of the financial planning software to make decisions, and, garbage in, garbage out. So we have to make sure it's ironclad. But, not everybody is digitally oriented. And I have sometimes clients that come to me to my office with a box full of papers. And I know, don't shake your head, it happens.
It stresses me out just thinking about that.
Yeah, me too. So I have my accordion file, and we start, organizing into this accordion file old school. Yeah. So, it just works differently for everybody, but the goal is, at the end of the day, to get everybody to the place where we have solid information, where we can have a robust onboarding, where I can really understand where they're at in terms of their preparation for meeting those goals and what needs to be happening. And then it's really going through and prioritizing, because as I mentioned earlier, there's so many different facets of financial planning. It's not just investments. And oftentimes folks will have different areas of needs, and we've got to prioritize what's the most important thing for that particular client. Is it getting your estate plan in place? I have one particular client that I'm thinking of, who's a single mom in the Midwest, and she's divorced and has young kids, and she has no estate planning documentation, and seemed a little surprised even that she needed that. So I put that as number one. Let's get that in place before you do anything. And once we started talking about the various documents, do you want your money going to your ex-husband through this way? And oh my God, no, we've got to get those documents in place pronto. And that was just one situation. For somebody else, I have another client that is, they were born in India, they're American citizens. They've been with one of those big financial firms that, everyone would recognize their name, but they had no idea what they were spending on investment management. So the first thing we focused on, and when I went through and I explained, you're spending 2% a year of your assets, and they had substantial wealth, on paying that broker. And did you know that? And oftentimes the answer is, I had no idea, because there's additional fees that get tagged on. They had internal funds. It's just a snowball effect sometimes. Yeah. And so the first thing they wanted to do was, absolutely, let's get those assets transferred out over to you. And one thing that I offer as a fee-only advisor is complete transparency toward fees. So you know exactly what you're paying to me. You'll know exactly what you're paying for your investment management. And that's like a breath of fresh air for people that have been with these big firms and have no idea. Why is their performance not keeping up with what their expectations are? Well, a lot of that could be the fees that you're paying to that firm and to that advisor.
Yeah, absolutely. Because 2% sounds like not a ton, right? If you're just thinking about 2%, but if you're talking about a large sum of money, that's a significant portion of what could be gains.
Right.
So yeah, that's fabulous that you're transparent. Is there a specific type of client? I know you mentioned a couple that you like to work with. Who's your ideal client?
Yeah, it's, how do I explain this? It's really, my method is, I hope to be very open, non-judgmental, and welcoming. So I'm always looking for those clients that want to work with someone that that is, really looking to spend the time with them. One of my clients always said, Tamara, I'm going to need a lot of hand-holding through all of this. And I said, you know what? That's what I'm here for, that I give customized financial planning services for people just like you that need a little extra hand-holding and assistance along the way. So, that can really cover a wide swath of clients, but ultimately the folks that have found me organically instead of my reaching out, but have found me, are often foreign-born or first-generation Americans that maybe don't have as much background in finance, that need that education and financial literacy education to really come up to speed in terms of the financial systems that we have here in the US, and really have a guide to bring them through what can be a maze in the various areas of, even thinking about something like buying a home. What does it involve? It involves looking at your credit score. A lot of folks that come to the US for the first time aren't really familiar with building credit and all that's involved in doing that, and how that can affect your getting a mortgage and qualifying for a mortgage, and what kind of mortgage rate you're going to get as a certain type of borrower.
Right.
Credit can also affect your next job. Your employer's probably going to do a background check, and that's going to include credit. So there's so many layers of things like that that get involved. And, I just hope to be that person that can guide them through. I also attract a lot of women to my practice that also need a little bit extra from what a typical financial advisor or financial planner might provide.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know you've gone into a couple of stories. I would love to hear, what are some of the proudest moments or biggest successes that you've had that you can share with our audience?
Right. Well, I mentioned that estate plan. I mean, that really just,
Yeah.
it frightened me that she was exposed that way. And this is something that's common to me, is also, folks that haven't revisited their estate planning documents in over 10 years. And honestly, I just put that up front and say, this is the most important thing that we can do, is to get this process started. But outside of that, something really more concrete of financial planning is tax planning. And not everybody in the financial planning space offers tax planning. And what I do there is we look at opportunities. I'm not a certified accountant, so I'm not a CPA that's going to actually be executing your taxes at the end of the year. But what I can do is give you ideas on how to save now and in the future. And oftentimes CPAs are so busy that they don't have time to actually do the tax planning. And so what we're doing is looking for opportunities. I'll take your tax return from that you just filed, let's say, and we'll go through it line by line and look for the opportunities that are there. And, there's a lot to think about right now. We have a potential sunsetting of one of the tax acts that affected the marginal tax brackets in the US. There was a change a while ago that raised the standard deduction, for example, and that could potentially sunset at the end of 2005. So as a financial planner, we're already thinking about things like this. Should we do Roth conversions, for example, for someone that has pre-tax retirement savings that could potentially convert them over to a Roth and pay what may be lower tax rates today rather than in the future? That's just one kind of example of the things that we're thinking about in tax planning. And one of the biggest wins, I mean, it's really satisfying when you can show some kind of analysis for a client showing the thousands that you can be saving them over years and years by getting the conversions done today or over the next, let's say, 3 years, and really look at that analysis. And it's, satisfying to them too, to say, wow, the money I'm saving by using an advisor who's thinking about these things is well worth it. It pays for itself and then some.
No doubt. No doubt. I can see why that would be a proud moment for you, but also, like you said, that's what I was going to say. It would be a very satisfying moment for your clients.
Yeah. Oh, and the last one that just got me really, and it's something that happened recently. I had a very successful family that came to me with lots of savings, and, they had trust set up and obviously very well thought out. And he said to me, I really need some help. I'm a do-it-yourselfer. I said, okay, I get that sometimes. Not everybody wants me to manage their assets. They want to do it themselves. But I've been sitting in cash since 2020. And I said, what? He had paralysis since the markets had rallied, since the crash during COVID. He never got back in. And he was always waiting for the next crash to start putting money to work. And if I can say the one thing that we say is never try to time the markets.
Right.
And we see this emotionality and behavioral type of psychology that you really just need to overcome by hiring somebody to get out of that rut. I mean, the amount of money that they didn't earn by sitting in cash, right? I mean, until recently, we have, let's say, 4 to 5% money markets. But over the past couple of years, since 2020, you were earning nothing. And on an inflation adjusted basis, you were absolutely losing money. Yeah. So it was satisfying to see him get off the bench and get back into the game, because, you just cannot time markets, and you need to be well diversified and invested.
Yeah. And I can see that the experience that you bring to the table in that is, I'm sure, sets you apart from a lot of people who just carry the CFP initials behind their name. So that's a huge deal that you're able to bring that knowledge and experience to the table when you're working with clients.
Well, thank you. I mean, the CFP does have coursework and it's a credential, but within the CFP world, there are different types of advisors. And I mentioned much earlier that I'm a fee-only planner. And we're only a small subset of the certified financial planners out there. So if you really want to know that your advisor is aligned with your interests, the really only way to do that in terms of aligning fee incentives, we don't take any commissions, we don't take any sales kickbacks or referral fees. It's to be with a fee-only advisor, and we're only about 2% of the advisor universe.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
How are you currently reaching out to clients?
Yeah, so I need to do more outreach. So you'll laugh at this, but I started a YouTube channel.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, only recently. And, just like we're on video right now, I recognize that video is really the communication medium of the future. And especially for folks that are in any kind of service industry like I'm in, I think it's really important to be communicating through video and, podcasting. And I really hadn't had much exposure even on social media. So I went through and I built up the brand and tried to disseminate these shorts, these YouTube shorts, through these different channels of, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, for example. And it's been an adventure.
Yeah.
It's just trying to understand, I'm a financial planner. I have a finance background. I'm not a creative type of personality. And so it's really been a challenge for me to figure all of this out. And even in terms of uploading videos to these various channels. I mean, every single thing is like a challenge and takes time to really figure it out. But I developed my own channel called Tamara on the Money. And that's the branding that I'm using throughout my various channels and presence online. And I'm really there to educate the broader universe of folks that are interested in financial planning and money tips. And really, my goal is to stand out as a very reliable source of credentialed information that's trustworthy. Because, wow, I looked out before I started this adventure, I'll say, online, to the advice that's being given is just either inappropriate or it's just plain wrong or lucky. So I'm trying to make folks understand that there's a difference between a finfluencer, let's say, that doesn't have a background in finance to someone that actually has worked, has the experience, and is a practicing certified financial planner, for example.
Yeah, I love that. So as you look to the future, what are your next plans for growth then?
Oh, I need some help. So this is where I have, all these great plans in my head. I think about maybe I'll start, various webinars and try to grow an audience that way. Maybe I'll do Facebook ads or some other kind of short-term focus. So these are things I'm thinking about. One thing I have done that I didn't mention, but that also is digitally oriented, is I had hired someone for SEO, search engine optimization. So that whole back end maze of the universe of what's going on behind the search engine algorithms and how to get your website up to speed and all the meta tags written. And I mean, that's just a complete foreign universe for me. And I needed help. I started to do it myself. And once I put my toe in, I said, nope, I'm not jumping into that pool. I am out. Someone else needs to take responsibility. And I had read some articles that actually is one of the best bangs for your buck in terms of if you do have some kind of marketing budget, where should you be putting those resources toward? And search engine optimization was one of the top things. So I did hire somebody 2 months ago.
That's awesome. So SEO can be fantastic, and it really is a good tool. To your point, it is difficult to learn and do on your own. So it's a whole other certification. It's a whole other career.
So I understand when sometimes people say to me, you're speaking like a language, and can you break that down? Right. So it's the same thing for me to say to someone talking SEO. I'm like, you're speaking in a different language that I'm just not familiar with.
Absolutely agree. So I love that. With YouTube, I think that SEO is going to be your best friend because YouTube is a search engine, right? And so capturing that on your YouTube channel, I think is a huge deal. Getting those titles that are searchable, that are the thing that people are typing in, you know, think about the questions that your clients are asking, answer that in a YouTube video and make
Right.
the question the title of your video. Yeah, that's all so good. And YouTube, it can be excellent. It is a longer term play, as I'm sure you know.
Yes.
It's definitely not a quick turnaround for client acquisition or lead generation, but it can be a
Exactly.
very great tool in the long run.
Right. The thing that really struck me, and I think I heard on maybe one of your prior podcasts and some other people talking about this, is that it stays out there though. And
Yeah.
so it's just, you make a video that resonates and it's just an asset that just keeps on selling for you ultimately. And so that's really attractive.
Yeah, and very recently we had a client come on board with us from watching one of our recent YouTube videos. It was a podcast episode, but it was on YouTube. So it can definitely lead to clients in the pipeline for sure. I love all of this. This is amazing. So I do have some other ideas. I know we're limited on time here today, so I would love to talk to you more about this. But why don't you tell people where they can go if they're wanting to connect with you more on everything that you've said here today?
Sure. They can visit my website, which is greenlifeadvisors.com. There you'll find a downloadable PDF that talks about the 5 mistakes that investors make, which we can also provide directly in the show notes. And anyone that's looking to, just learn a little bit more, pick up some money tips, I'm at Tamara on the Money on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. You'll find me everywhere.
Fantastic. I will link all of that, as you said, in the show notes so that people can click and find you easily. Tamara, it's been so good having you here today. Thank you so much for being here
Thank
and sharing
you.
all of this with our
Thanks
audience.
so much. It was really fun. Thanks so much.
It's my pleasure. For everyone listening or watching, go grab those links in the show notes. Make sure you like and subscribe wherever you're listening or watching, and we will see you in the next one.